people die from it. I was basically doing anything I could get my hands on. You know, I would nod out at the wheel, driving down the road. You know, I was involved in selling it. You start to do more and more and more and more. You start to think of ways to get money. Basically, you know, a burglary was, you know, a thought that crossed my mind, and I acted on it. My name is Cuttill. I'm 29 years old, and I am a recovering drug addict. This is my story.
This is small-town Wisconsin, Walworth County. Eric Cuttill came to the small town of Sharon at a young age. There he led a seemingly normal life. He attended school, he worked the family farm, and had an active social life. Eric's innocence would soon be interrupted by his plummet into the world of addiction, something that affects 1 out of 12 people across our country.
There's a big surge in substance abuse specific to heroin and opiates. And so that is certainly between the ages of 18 and 24, that's a big range that people are starting to have problems with drug abuse.
Today you'll get a chance to hear Eric's story in his own words, how his personal struggle with addiction has led him down a very, very difficult road to recovery. Eric's addiction didn't happen overnight. Like many addicts, he started off with gateway drugs early in his youth. His circle of friends included teens who smoked cigarettes and drank alcohol, an unfortunate commonplace in most high schools. It was this behavior and the crowd he hung out with that led to his introduction to marijuana.
Again, I was 14, started smoking pot. It kind of went from there. I don't know if it was the need to fit in or what, you know, friends were doing it. Mm-hmm. I was already smoking cigarettes. Then, you know, new things start coming around, you know, like acid, you know, things like that. You know, and drinking. And, you know, it's kind of everybody's doing it kind of thing. I was, I got pretty heavy into it. You know, I was involved in selling it and things like that.
Because that's how you could afford to buy it?
Yeah, basically. Well, you know, it was, I mean, I worked since since I was 14. You know, I used to babysit, I was a busboy, worked at the hardware store. You know, so I always had money other than, you know, selling, you know, pot or whatever. So I guess it was more or less for the status. You know what I mean? You know, everybody comes to me.
It's very common for people to struggle because it becomes an intricate part of their life. So people that can't quit usually end up having this disease long term, and traditionally the disease will progress over the person's lifetime.
At the age of 16, Eric's girlfriend became pregnant. As time went on, his involvement with drugs increased, and this led to withdrawal from his family. He would often run away from home. Eric also made new friends who introduced him to a new and more addictive drug.
Cocaine started to come around. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it was a friend that introduced me to that, and then, you know, or so-called friend, whatever you want to. And then I hit that pretty hard. You know, it started off kind of slow, and then, you know, and then selling pot and everything already, I decided that it was, you know, I could do that too. Mm-hmm. But what happens is that you start to do more than what you sell, and it's really hard to make a profit or support yourself. It's not even the right way to support yourself, but when you can't do it anymore.
Knowing that he couldn't support himself selling cocaine, Eric decided to quit. And for a while he was successful at staying clean. But then at work there was an accident which resulted in nagging back pain. He had to take prescription drugs, and before he knew it, he was addicted to opiates.
And that's a whole different class of drug. I was basically doing anything I could get my hands on by then, you know, when it come to pills. And it was Oxycontin, and you know, that's pretty strong stuff.
Eric didn't know at the time, but his addiction to pills would cost him his relationships and would make even the most simplistic things in life difficult.
You know, I would nod out at the wheel, driving down the road, going speed limit, over speed limit, under the speed limit, and I would be falling asleep, crossing the center line, putting everybody in danger, you know, and she would be yelling at me all the time, and I would just, you know, I would just play it off, you know.
You had kids in the back seat?
And she wasn't into what I was into, or at least not like I was into it. And she started to see that. She started to notice it. You know, it's pretty hard to hide. And she, you know, she took off. She made a decision, and she, you know, grabbed my daughter, and she did the right thing, is what she did.
Realizing that he was losing everything, Eric decided that it was again time to straighten up his life. But after quitting doing the pills, he got sick, a sickness he describes as 10 times worse than the flu. With these intense withdrawal symptoms, he was desperate to find ways to cope. He looked around and found something new, something that would make him feel better almost instantly.
Another friend of mine said, "Hey, I have some dope," is what he said. I'm like, "Oh, okay. You know, what's that?" You know, and he gave me you know, it was in a little foil. He said, "It's $10. I said, "All right, no problem." And I said, "What is it?" He said, "It's heroin." And I was like, wow, you know, now it's real. You know, I've never seen it in person. Didn't know what it really does. All I did know about it is that people die from it.
After being introduced to heroin, Eric looked for a more efficient way to get high. He turned to needles and started shooting up daily.
So that's when it really started to get bad, was when I was shooting it. And you start to do more and more and more and more, and you know, by this time I'm shooting you know, $100, sometimes $200 worth a day, sometimes $50, $60, $70 worth at a time.
So how do you afford to do that?
What happens is that you start to think of ways to get money, obviously. First comes, you know, your credit cards if you have them, and then the checkbook comes into play. Then I, you know, started thinking of other ways to get money, and basically, you know, a burglary was, you know, a thought that crossed my mind, and I acted on it.
Eric not only turned to burglary, but also forgery and retail theft. He was in and out of jail, and at one time faced more than 30 felonies. After violating probation, the law caught up with Eric again. He was arrested by the Walworth County Sheriff's Department and taken to jail.
My impression was he really didn't care. I mean, you know, a lot of people would be upset they were getting arrested for a burglary or getting arrested. And my impression with Eric at the time was that it didn't make any difference to him where he was going or what was happening to him. When we executed the search warrant, we did find some of the proceeds of the burglary at his brother's house in Janesville, along with a lot of hypodermic needles and cooking ingredients for heroin and stuff, and I want to say maybe 75 needles and foil wrappers and things like that. It was in a gym type bag, and it was, when we opened it up, it was something something most of the time you see on television.
Eric was brought here to the Walworth County Law Enforcement Center. During his time in custody, he reached out to one of his arresting officers, Detective Mike Banashinsky. It was also here that a very unusual friendship would develop between the two.
A lot of times people think that the job of a police officer is just to put people behind bars, but there's a human nature to everybody, and everybody stumbles and everybody falls.
I decided that, you know, kind of like before, but this time I was very serious about it. I decided that I was going to get myself right and start my life. I'm 30 years old. You know, I don't have anything anymore, and I've ruined everything I've ever had and lost everything. And I decided that I'm going to do it.
Within the first year, about 80 to 90% of people relapse, meaning that they go back to the drug at least for a short period of time. And usually what that is because the person needs to learn how to make a lot of changes in their life. And it's very difficult in the first year to just kind of learn how to maybe spend time with different friends, maybe change your living situation, and a lot of different parts of your lifestyle need to change.
At the time, Eric knew that rehab was the best thing for him. While there, he enrolled in school and studied psychology. He continued to keep in contact with Detective Banashinsky, writing him often and updating him on his progress.
It is unbelievable the things you can learn about yourself when you clear your mind of all the chemicals. Addiction is addiction, though. We are required to do a standard list of assignments. Some of them include an autobiography and a lifeline. Others include criminal thinking and defense mechanisms. They also hand out little assignments to do while we're in a group some days, such as criminal thought, format, and trigger effects. So if we learn to deal with these thoughts, emotions, etc. correctly, we can make the right decisions. Whether you know it or not, you have been a positive impact on my life. You are appreciated, Eric. So, I mean, you can just tell by his words in his letter that, you know, he wants to succeed, and I hope to see him succeed too.
The fact is, for so many who try to quit their addictions, it is often difficult and sometimes even impossible.
If a person truly has alcohol dependence or drug dependence, which is a clinical term, that person has something that we consider a disease. And so a disease is just like any other chronic condition where it would be something that someone would have lifelong. It wouldn't be something that they would necessarily kick, but something that they'd have to learn how to manage and take care of themselves throughout their life. People that can't quit usually end up having this disease long term, and traditionally the disease will progress over the person's lifetime. If I was addicted to a drug at 20 and I continue to use that drug throughout my life, the addiction will get stronger and become more and more consuming in my life.
Eric was no exception. He tried to escape his addiction, but up to now has been unsuccessful.
It's been really rough. My life has been really rough.
Well, it sounds like you're really got hope though now, and that you're headed definitely in the right direction.